Hey, Chevette World. Here we go. Finally am done with this mess. Enough that I can come out here and work. And as I'm sure you've seen, this one's aired back up. I'm ready to reposition it in the garage so I can get it up on some jack stands because we're about to start doing the rear end swap. That way I can get the brake lines finished, as well as the welding of the floorboard and the hard line for the fuel. And I think I finally got a final location for the computer worked out over in the corner there that I'll show you here in a little bit. I've also got a bunch of other things coming up real soon. But the main focus right now is going to be this car, for at least until I can get it moving on its own power. I already have Scooter pretty well ready to move on its own power, but the transmission has to be removed one more time to be resealed. Otherwise, it's not going to hold any fluid. Otherwise, it's not going to do any good to go down the road with it. So that'll be done here shortly, but I'm also still waiting on the rear end plate, which will also be here pretty soon. So we can start fitting that. Oh, yes, and then the race car engine. We are finally going to get around to doing the 2-liter head swap on a Chevette 1.6. And this is in fact not this particular engine, but this engine that we're building is in fact going to be the one that has the forged pistons and the Honda connecting rods in it. So I'm going to get on getting stuff done for this one here, because I got a lot to do yet. The parts are still piled up in here. The steering column is mocked into place. I have a lot of wiring to deal with, but I still got a few things here in the garage to address, namely this wire and this switch here. Once I get that and I can get my garage door open, then we're good to go. I found myself to just lift that door because I'm not screwing with electrical in the garage today. I kind of want to do some car stuff. I would much rather do some car stuff. I really need a break from the house. So I've got Cheddar out there idling. About to have Scooter fired up and idling here in a little bit, much to my neighbor's dismay, I'm sure. Because I need to get this one out and get it a bath before I do anything to it, because it is currently covered in a lot of dust I don't even want to breathe on. So we're going to get it out here where I can safely get a rinse done on it, and then I'm going to power wash the construction dust off everything, get the garage finalized so I can get this thing back in here, and then we're going to start working more on this. But you will be seeing some more on this shortly, as well as this one. And it was determined that this wiring harness is actually going to go through here. And what is on the other side of this is glove box area and dead space under the dashboard. I'll walk around the car here. I'll show you where the computer is going to go. I'm in the process of figuring out exactly how to mount it over there right at the moment. But let's see, did I take it over there? Yeah. Oh, it's up here. So taking this dash pad off on this car makes no difference. There's really no access to the other side. There's like a hole here and a hole here, but no real way to get there. You have to go up from underneath here. But right here is the other side of that battery wall. There's plenty of room to get the ECU up under in that area. So I got to figure out a way to mount that. And then I got to figure out exactly where I'm bringing the hole through to bring the grommet through. But that's where I'm at right now, getting ready to mount that and bring the wiring harness in so I know where it's going to run. And then I got all of this to clean up and reroute. That way it's accessible and makes sense and isn't pulling on wires like it has been. I didn't do any of that. Once I get this all up and out of the way, then I can start getting in here and welding up the transmission tunnel. Well, I picked a location. It still leaves me the factory battery spot. I don't have anything going to be crammed in behind it. It was a little tight over here, mostly because the ECU is literally right behind here. And there was a lot more harness between here and the inside there. It a bit more comfortable how it is through that spot. Now it's just kind of laying all over the engine, but I'm getting ready to pull the engine and transmission back out of here, so this is going to be laying over the fender here in a minute anyway. Right now, what I'm just trying to do before I get the engine and transmission back out is finalize where everything is going to sit coming between the interior and the exterior of the car. And then I'm going to go through this harness over here, as well as the mess of battery cable stuff over there, and the stuff that's under the dashboard, try to make heads or tails of it, so when I put it back, it's going to be nice and smooth and organized. That way, if it needs to be serviced, it's going to be easily serviced. However, I do want to get you in here. I did find a spot up under, as I said, under the dashboard. On this particular car, there's not really a big hole under the pad like there is on the North American car. It's pretty solid, so I left the pad. I'm going to have to find a way to mount that, but that ECU does sit in that shelf above where the glove box sits, right there. So I got to mount the fuse box once I get the glove box back up in there. And I got to ground that eyelet. And then that red wire should be 12 volt on power source from the key. So I'll have to figure out the Brazilian wiring over here. So I'm at a stopping point this evening. Wiring is pretty much figured out. The only thing I have to do now before I take anything apart is tag it. Whether it's 12 volt or it's ground, I need to tag it because none of this is labeled. None of this is available to me other than the wiring harness schematics for the car itself. And there's a power window kit in this car. There's an alarm system in this car. Obviously the stereo. So there's a lot of things in here that are going to come out. And when it goes back, there's a lot of things that are going to be sorted out into their individual harnesses rather than all mixed up into this mess. I wasn't intending to get into that, but I don't have a choice. It is what it is. It's part of building a car. So, I have all of the stuff for the dash. There's tack, right here. Speedometer. I have to look at the thing again. There was a few other things in here. One of these is the check engine light. I got to figure out where exactly I'm sticking the check engine light, be it in the console somewhere or in the dash somewhere. But either way, all of this is going to be out of here. Hopefully tagged and labeled, and everything will make sense. And then once I've got it out of the way, then I can make the last couple cuts I need to make on the floor. Which also includes removing this, because I'm going to either have to put a new one up here on top for like an aftermarket hot rod deal, or relocate this one over just a little. Either way, drive shaft clearance. And then I can start buttoning up this, weld it up, seam seal it, paint it, good to go. Then the engine and transmission will be going back in for the final time, and hopefully with the wiring done, it'll just start and run. So, I am going to test a little bit of this. I'm going to wire a couple things temporarily. Make sure I turn the key on. Make sure that things up here happen. Make sure that the fuel pump that's going in the trunk ends up coming on with the relay. Things like that. We won't be cranking it. Obviously, there's no oil in this thing right now. But we will be... Well, I'm going to bump the key just enough to engage the starter. What I'll probably end up doing is taking the starter signal wire and running it to a bulb out here. That way I can just turn the key on and it'll light the bulb up. Same thing as engaging the starter, but I won't have to crank an engine that has no oil in it. And then this will all be a little tidier over here when it's all said and done too. Now, this car has no heat. There is no heater in this car. This was a heat optional car because, well, it's from a tropical country. Heat was an option. I have heater lines ready. I have to get a Douglas bottle from the junkyard to see kind of what's going to fit where. And then I can kind of plan things, whether I'm going to cap and loop the heater for now, or if we're eventually going to put an under dash unit in this. The likelihood of getting a Brazilian parts car with a heater and everything good here to the States is not likely going to happen. So what will probably end up happening is just a simple under dash unit, like a hot rod unit. And then we'll be able to put air conditioning on it as well. Because there is room. There is definitely room for the compressor. And while I'm trimming the rest of this for the radiator, there would be room for a condenser. So something that is on the thoughts for future upgrades. I know me and Roger had talked about that. But it looks like that's going to be the route to go. Especially with the modifications to the firewall I'm going to have to do. Eventually it's just going to be easier to cap that off. And then just put an aftermarket system underneath the dash. It'll still connect into the defroster vents and everything will still function fine. So, but that's where I'm at for this evening. I'm going to take a break here and I will pick back up with you guys tomorrow. All right. Well, the fun has begun. Most of everything I've taken loose so far makes plenty of sense because it is stereo wiring, and stereo wiring is stereo wiring no matter where you are in the world. Where they tagged into it in the factory harness didn't make any sense. And that's because I don't really know Brazilian wiring too well. I have a schematic available to me, so I'm a little more confident in this than I was several months ago. What scares me at the moment is the aftermarket bits. This is tied into the electric windows as well as the alarm system, I am assuming, and I find things like this in there, and this is old stuff too. There's a lot of that. There's also a lot of bad splices and things, and so I'm going to try and retain it. And I'm trying to work the factory harness out and around the rat's nest of aftermarket bits. But yeah, that's fun today. This will be time consuming. Luckily, I'm good with it. I'm not good with it. I hate wiring, but I'm good with wiring. So this shouldn't take very long to sort out. Oh, wish me luck. It wasn't too bad. I have the vast majority of it figured out already. I think I've been at it about 20 minutes. All of the LS related harness is going to be over there. When I am done, the vast majority of the stereo harness will probably route both sides, but the majority of it is going to be on that side. I plan on putting a power distribution block as well as a common ground in here for the aftermarket stuff. I have most of the aftermarket stuff still hooked up largely, with the exception of a couple connections that had to be taken apart to get over here. But they're going to be rerouted up and through the dashboard top side rather than down here anyway. That way it's cleaner under the dashboard. But yeah, I'm gonna kick back to kicking it here on these wires and see if I can get these rest of these plugs figured out. I gotta take a couple peeks at the schematic, I think, but for the most part the harness was largely untouched. It was just spliced into, so I got a few repairs to make and then put it all back together right. So now I have to rethread the bottom of the tank because fuel system's getting ready to go in because I'm getting ready to reroute all this stuff here. Got the rear axle over here ready to get stripped down and coated. I'm ready for its, well, stripped down, ready for the buckets, spring buckets and things off of this rear axle. Then coated. Also new bearings and seals. And then here's my steering column I'm working on. Well, not my steering column, it's the car's steering column. But There is a bearing I actually have, as soon as I can find my sleeve of them. It's going to go into the end of this to support that tube, so it's not just kind of walking all over, because this used to be supported by the rack and pinion. That will be no longer. There'll be U-joints and a collapsible shaft in between the two now. So I got to work on a bearing support for here. I have all of the electrical largely moved out of my way, so now I can start patching up the floor. And we're just not, well, I wouldn't say we're moments away. Maybe somebody's moments, maybe somebody that was more motivated than me today. Maybe by the end of the day kind of a thing, but we'll see. I still have a bunch of things up here. I got to get the master cylinder mounted, both the one for the brakes and the one for the clutch underneath here. And I got to finish getting the radiator mounted so it's out of the way, so I can get a fan in there. So there's lots of little things. Lots of little things. Just lots of little things. And then, of course, the engine and transmission have to come out, as I've been saying, because I got to final weld all of the motor mounts in. I got to get the transmission cross member finished. That way this can just go back in and be bolted back in place when it's ready. I got a couple other things exhaust-wise to finish up. Again, lots of crazy little things. But the shelf is emptying of parts. Alright, now I've gotten to the point where I'm about to start doing the transmission tunnel stuff. Just the last couple things I have to hammer out before the engine and transmission come out. I had to get the e-brake box out of here, and this is a North American Chevette U-joint and yoke system, and it doesn't have a whole lot of clearance, and the one that will be going in here will be slightly bigger. 1350 U-joint, I think. At any rate, this little drop down right here has to come out of this. The tunnel has to come up to at least here to the brace. So I also have discovered that right here needs to come over a little further. And at this point, I think rather than cut and fillet and try to save a bunch of this, I'm going to go ahead and try to save the main structure part right here in the center, and then the rest of this is just going to go down to the floor, back here, and across, and come out. And I'm just going to build a new tunnel. So that's where I am stopping for this evening. Tomorrow morning I'm going to drop the rear end out of the car. I got a bunch of stuff to unhook yet, but it is currently still under there. However, after tomorrow, that will be sitting over in the corner, and this one right here is going to be getting worked on, getting ready to go underneath the car. So I think this will be about where I ended off. We're going to pick back up probably towards the weekend. I'm going to try and get another video together. But as of right now, this is where I'm going to stop. Next time we pick up, there's going to be a bunch more of this work done. And this 7.5 will probably be ready to sit underneath the car, if not already sitting underneath of it. Alright guys, till the meantime, keep that shiny side up.